Hello everybody, in today's video we are going to be taking a look at how to create this stunning login page UI in Flutter. I'm going to be taking you through the step-by-step process of how to think about building these type of UIs and building them in a way that they look good on all different screen sizes and all different devices. So with that said, let's get into the video. So the first thing that I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to be telling you guys that I have a basic Flutter project already up and running on a simulator, and this is the basic Flutter app that you get once you start a new Flutter project, and this is going to be the starting point for this tutorial. From here, the first thing that I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to be removing the homepage class that we have included in the code that gets auto-generated. And I'm just going to remove it. I'm going to be coming back to my lib folder, and I'm going to be creating a new folder here, which I'm going to be calling pages. And inside of this, I'm going to create a new file. And I'm going to call this my login_page.dart, like so. Once this is done, the next thing that I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to be basically creating a class here, and this class is going to be representing our login page. And since we are just building the UI and there's no state involved in this, I'm going to say that my login page is going to extend a stateless widget. Once this is done, the next thing that I'll do is that I'll implement the build method for our stateless widget, and I'm going to then make sure that instead of throwing an unimplemented error, that I return a scaffold. Once this is done, I'm going to leave this at rest for now. I'm going to be coming back to my main.dart file, and I'm going to be replacing the home widget here for a material app to be the login page now. So for this, I'll just remove the actual home page class here, and I'm going to add login page. And once this is done, we should be good. As soon as we do command save, and assuming you're running the app as well, you should see that now we should have a blank slate and an empty canvas to start creating our UI on. So now that this is done, the next thing that I'm going to be doing is that I am going to be basically going back to my main.dart file, and I am going to be basically changing the color scheme here. And the reason I'm changing the color scheme is because the color scheme for our app is a bit different than colors.deep purple. So to do this, what I'll do is that for the seed color, I'll remove colors.deep purple, and I say that instead of that, we'll use color dot, and then we're going to get a color from the RGBO components. So red, green, blue, and opacity. So for the red, I'll do 30, and then you can press tab, and this takes you to the next argument in the function that you're passing the arguments to, and then 88, and then after that I can do 241 and 1. And with this, I'll do Option Shift F command save, and Option Shift F can be used to reformat your code. And then command save obviously is for just saving the file, and now we are good. So I'm going to be coming back to the login_page.dart file, and this is where all of the magic is now going to be happening. So the first thing that I'll do for my login page is that I am going to set the background color to be something else than this white, because our background color for our scaffold is this light kind of grayish. So to do that, I will add the background color property to my scaffold, and then what I'll do is that I'm going to say that this is going to be color dot, and then from here I'm going to do dot RGBO, and then for red, green, blue, so I'm going to do 255, 255, 1.255, and then 1.0, do command save, and there we go, and do command save. So now that the color is matching to the background color of our UI, which is this color behind the text fields, the next thing that I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to be defining the body attribute for our scaffold, and the body attribute is the contents for our scaffold that are going to be shown on screen. So scaffold is basically a widget that we use to have an empty canvas on which we can draw other widgets for our UI. And then for the body, I'm going to be saying that I'm going to have a function which I'll call build UI, because I like to keep my code very well organized. I like to break things up into functions. So I'll make a function called build UI, which will return a widget, and I'll add this function. I'll create this function within the login page class, and I'm going to say that this function will return a widget. It's going to be called build UI. It's going to take no arguments, and there we go. And then for returning, what am I going to be returning? Well, let's take a look at our UI, and then maybe we can get a hint as to what we have to do. So if you take a look at the UI, I can see that our actual UI is comprised of two main parts. We have this top header section, which includes our text as well as this picture of a house. And then at the bottom, we have this section, which is kind of light grayish, which has some text fields in it, a forgot password link, as well as a sign in button, and I don't have an account button. So basically our UI in the most basic of sense can be divided into two parts. The first being the header that we can see, and then the second being this light gray color. So what I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to be tackling this first. So how do we tackle this? Well, the first thing that I'll do is that I'm going to say that I'm going to be using a special widget, which is called a column widget. And a column widget is a widget which allows us to add widgets within it, and it's put those widgets in a vertical fashion. So the widget that comes first is going to be placed on top of the next one and the next one. In this case, our column is going to have two children. The first will be a header, and then after that, we'll have this light gray section. So now that I have a column, the next thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to define the children aspects for us, or the children for this column. And these is going to be a list of widgets, and a column can have as many children as you want. But for our case, we're going to have two. So what I'll do is that I'll create now two functions. The first will be widget underscore header. And this function will obviously be a function that's called header, will return a widget. And we will say that for now, it'll return a container like so. And then I'll add this to the build UI's children as underscore header. And we'll come back to the next one later on, but for now, let's do this. So with this done, we should now be ready to start implementing our header. So for implementing our header, let's take a look at what we have to do. So in our header, we have a sign-in text, we have this picture of a house, and we have this light greenish kind of a color for the background. So let's tackle these things one at a time. So the first thing that I'm going to be doing is that I'll change the color. So to do that, I'm going to come to my container. I'm going to set the color property, and I'm going to make that be const color dot, and then from red, green, blue, and orange. And then for this, we're going to do 230, 250, or 253, I should say, 253, and then 1.0. With this done, do Option Shift F, Command Save, and you're going to see that nothing happens. And the reason for that is because we don't have anything with our container right now. It's taking no space up on our screen. And since the container is taking no space, it basically has no size on our screen. So the color isn't showing up as well. So we need to change that. So for that, what I'll do is that I'll use the width and height properties for our container. The width property is going to be media query dot off, and then context dot size dot width. And the reason I'm still doing this is because of the fact that our actual header needs to take the complete width of the device. So we can just do media query dot of context dot size dot width and do Command Save. It's giving me an error saying that the context is undefined. For my header, I'm going to say that it's going to take a build context as an argument, and I'm going to call this context. And then here I'm going to do the same thing again, that I'm going to pass the context to our header. And I'm going to say that my build UI is also going to take a build context, and I'll call this context as well. And then to the function here, I'm going to pass the context and do Command Save. And now our container should have a width which is equal to the width of the device. And now we need to give it a height. Mic testing concluded that the height that worked was 25% of the height of our actual device. To do that, we can do media query dot off context, and then dot size dot height, and then times 0.25 to Command Save. And there you go. Now the header is being shown to us, and it's taking 25% of the height of the device and 100% of the device of the width and the width of the device. So with this, then the next thing that we're going to be doing is now discussing how we can add these children inside of this container. Since a container can only have one child, how can we have two children within it? And also, how can these two children be aligned to each other in a horizontal manner? So to do this, what we'll do is that we'll come to our container, we'll add the child property to it. This child is going to be a row, so similar to a column which arranges widgets in a vertical manner, a row does in a horizontal. And then what I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to be defining the children attribute for this, and here is where we're going to be adding our actual widgets. So the first widget that we're going to be adding is going to be the sign-in text. So for that, I'll say that we'll add a text widget. It's going to be called sign-in. And with this, I will do Option Shift F, Command Save, and just see if sign-in shows up. It is showing up. And then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to define the styling for this. So to do that, we'll add the style property, and then I'm going to say it's going to be text style. And then here we can define the color. So the first thing is the color, which is going to be colors.black. The next thing after that is going to be the font weight, and that's going to be font weight.w600. And then finally, after this, we're going to be doing font size, which is going to be 30, and do Option Shift F, Command Save. And there you go. Now the sign in button is being shown to us the way it should be. The next thing that I want to do now is that I want to add this image of a house. So how do we do this? Well, the first thing that we need to do is that we need to put this within our source code, and then we need to tell Flutter that include this thing within our source code and then load this image onto the screen. So it's a 3-step process. The first thing that I'll do is that I'll create a place where I can keep all of my static assets. So to do that, I'll come into here, I'll create a new folder. I'm going to call this assets. And then inside of here, since I like to keep my code organized, I'll create a new folder called images. And within images is where I am going to be putting this file. So this is the file. So I'm going to be copying this, and I'm going to be copying back to the assets images folder. I'm going to be opening that up in Finder, and I'm going to be placing the illustration.png file here, as you can see. So now that we have this house file, the next thing that we need to do is that we need to tell Flutter to load these assets up. So to do that, we come to our pubspec.yaml file, and we go all the way down to a place where it says to add assets to your application. You can uncomment this line. So we uncomment this, and then we uncomment the next line as well, like so. And then here, what I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to say that we are going to load everything that's under the assets folder and then images folder, like so. And this was pretty much all we have to do. So once this is done, the next thing that I'll do is that I'm going to do command save. I'm going to stop running our application, and I'm going to rerun it. And this way the assets will be loaded again. And I'm just going to wait for the actual application to stop building and start running. And then once that is done, I'll resume the video. So welcome back, everybody. Now our application is running again, and hopefully the assets should be loaded. So how do we show this asset image now? Well, the process that we're going to be using for this is going to be that I'm going to be coming to my login page, and after the text widget that I added, I'm going to be adding a new widget, which I'm going to be calling image.asset. And what this widget does is that it creates an image from the asset, and then for the name, we pass the relative path from the assets folder to where the actual asset is. So in my case, that's going to be assets/images, and then slash the actual image that I want to upload, which is going to be illustration.png, and then do command save, and there you go. But now I want to fix up the size for this as well as the actual positioning for this. So let's do that. So the first thing that I'll do is that I'll fix up the sizing for this. So for that, what I did was that I changed the width for this to be media query dot off context. And then from here, I take the size and the width, and I make this image be around 45% of the width of the device, and do command save. There we go. And then the next thing that I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to be basically making the fit of the image be different than what it currently is. And for that, what I'll do is that I'll do box fit and then fill. So you can play around with the fit property and see what type of fit works for you if you're using a different kind of an image, and see what works for you. But for me, box fit for fill was the actual one that worked the best. So once this is done, you can see that for now our UI is not looking close to what it looks like on the screen. Firstly, the sign in and the home have a lot of space between them. They're not bunched together like on our screen, and there's also some padding on the side of sign in. So these are two different things that we're going to tackle in two different ways. The first is that how do we add space between these children within our row? Well, for that, what we can do is that we can add a property to our row called the main axis alignment, which for the row is the horizontal axis, and we can say how our children is going to be aligned on the main axis. And in my ways, what I want to do is that I want to do main axis alignment dot space between. So I want space between the children. Then once this is done, the next thing that I want to do is that I want to define the main axis size. So how much size is this row going to take up? So the maximum size that it can take. And then finally, after this, I'll also define the cross axis alignment. So the cross axis alignment for a row is going to be the vertical axis. And how are these children going to be aligned with each other on the vertical axis? And for this, I'm going to say center, to command save, and there we go. It's all well and done now. So now that this is done, the next thing that I want to do, add some padding to my actual sign in button. So to do that, what I do is that I am going to come to my text. I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to say that I'm going to refactor, and I'm going to basically wrap this within a padding. And then from here, for the padding property, I'm going to say that instead of using agentsets.all, I'm going to do agentsets, and then from left, top, right, and bottom. And then I'm going to say from the left it's 20, from the top 0, right 0, bottom 0, to command save, and there you go. And then the last thing that I'm going to do, since all of this stuff is not going to be changing, is that I'm going to be adding the const modifier to this, And there we go. Now we are done. Now we have padding on this side. There's a space between the sign in and the actual home, and we are pretty much done. So the last thing that we need to do now is that we need to push everything that's within our container down. So to do this, we can do cross-axis alignment.end, and this moves everything down. But then what happens is that basically our sign in button is no longer in the middle of the house. It also is brought down. So for that, what I do is I'll keep this for center, and I'll come to my container, and after the color, I'll add a padding property. And for the padding property, I'm going to say that I'm going to do edge insets dot only. So only from one specific side. I'm going to say from the top, I want to add a specific amount of padding, and that is going to be equal to media query dot off, and then context, and then dot size dot height, and then I'm going to do 0.10, comma, Alt Shift F, Command Save, and now everything is moved to the bottom. The sign in text is where it needs to be, and the house is where it is, and everything is looking good. So now you can see that the header looks the way it was supposed to look, and we can move on to the next part of our video. So now the next thing that we need to do is that we need to basically create a function which is going to be responsible for creating the rest of our UI, or these bottom parts, which I am going to call the login form. So I'm going to create a function, and I'm going to call this function login form, and as before, it's going to return widget. And then inside of here, I'm going to say that for now, what we're going to return is a sized box. So a sized box is a type of container, but it's basically a widget that has a fixed width and a height that we can define, and then another child, which is a widget. But for now, what I'll do is I'll keep this like this. I'll take the login form, I'll go up to my actual build UI function, to the column. And here what I'm going to be doing now is that I'm going to be adding the login form, and I'm also going to pass the context to the login form as well, because I know we're going to be using this later on. And then for my login form, I'll say that, well, for one of the arguments that it gets, it's going to be the build context. Do Command Save, and now we are ready to get the show on the road. So the first thing that I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to be defining the width and the height for this. So to do that, I'll do that the width for my login form. So this is this widget, which comprises of this gray color, as well as the two text fields, a forgot password button, the sign in button, and I don't have an account button. So the width in this case is going to be, as you might have guessed it, the width of the device. So media query dot off context dot size dot width. And then the height for this is going to be, again, media query dot off context dot size dot height, and I'm going to say that this is going to be 0.75, so 75% of the height of our device. So now that we've defined the height and the height for our actual login form, and we could have used a container instead of a size box as well, but I just wanted to show you something else that you can use as well. What we're going to be doing is that we're going to be defining the child property for this, and I'm going to be adding a form widget to this. And a form widget is basically a widget that can hold different elements of a form within it. Since we are just creating a UI, the form is not going to be of any use to us, but I wanted to show you how you do things properly in Flutter. That's why we're going to be covering up or encapsulating all of our form related data fields in a form widget, as well as the sign in button and everything like that. So if you wanted to actually control these fields and access their data, that could be done through this form widget and attaching a controller to it, which we're not going to be doing, but it's a good thing for you to know. So for this child, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be basically adding a column. And the reason we're adding a column is for the fact that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 widgets, which are basically stacked on top of each other in a vertical fashion. So to do this, we need to use some kind of a column. And if you look closely, we can also see that maybe we could divide this UI into 2 columns. One column being this top one, where we have the email address text field, the password text field, and the forgot password link, and then the next column being the sign in button and I don't have an account link, and then there being some space between them. So what we could think of this as being a one big column which has 2 smaller columns within it, one holding this part of the UI and then the other one holding this part of the UI. So that's what we're going to be trying to achieve now. So firstly, what I'm going to do is that once I've defined the column, I'm going to define the children property for this, and the children, for now, we keep it empty, and we first create a function which is going to be responsible for generating these. So the first thing that we'll do is that we'll tackle the form fields here. So for that, I am going to say that I'm going to create a widget function called form fields, and it's basically going to return a sized box like so. And then inside of this, we are going to have a child, which is going to be a column like so. Once this is done, I'm going to do command save. I'll take this form fields, I'll add this as a children's property to our column and do command save. And now our login form has a column that has children, one of those children being a form field, which is a size box that has a child of a column as well. So now we have a column within which we have a column, as I had alluded to before, and within this is where we can add all of our children. So to do this, what I'm going to be doing now is that I'm not going to be adding the code for the actual text form field here, and the reason is because I want to keep my code well organized, and I do not want to just put everything in one place and make my code reusable and follow the dry principle, which is don't repeat yourself. I'm going to create a new folder in my lib. I'm going to call this widgets. I'm going to create a new file under this, and I'm going to call that rounded text form field.dart. And then I'm going to open this file up. I'm going to create a class, and I'm going to call this class rounded text form field as well. I'm going to say that it extends a stateless widget like so. And then with this, we can add the build method to this. And then inside of here, what I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to say that we for now are going to return. And what are we going to be returning? Well, we are going to be returning a container for now, and do command save. I'm going to come back to my login page, to the column. I'm going to add the children property to this, and then I'm going to say that here I'm going to use my rounded text form field like so, and do command save. I'm now going to go back to the rounded text form field class, and I'm going to start styling our form field. So you can see that our form field has a very unique kind of style. It has rounded corners, it has some shadow on the background, it has this icon button, and then an email address hint. So we have to basically create our text field to be like this. So how are we going to be doing this? Well, let's do the first thing, which is that let's create our text form field. So I'm going to take my container, I'm going to add a child to it. I'm going to say that this is going to be a text form field. And now our text field is appearing. And you can see it doesn't look the way we want it to look, but it kind of gets the job done. So now let's start changing the styling of this. So the first thing that I'll do is that I'll add a decoration property to my text form field. I'm going to say it's going to be of type input decoration. And then inside of here, the first thing that I'll do is that I'm going to be adding the icon that we see here. So to do that, what you do is that you're going to define the property called prefix icon, and then this is going to be equal to an icon widget. And then the icon widget expects you to give it two things. One is the icon data, so the actual icon that you're going to be using, and the next is the color. So for the icon, we'll come to that, but for the color, what I'll do is that I'm going to say we're going to do colors.blue. And then for the icon, we can do, for example, icon.email or icons.email, and I'm going to say email outline like so. Option Shift F, command save, and you can see that the icon is now showing. But since I want this widget to be reusable and so that we can use it time and time again, what I want to do is that I want to make it so that when we instantiate this class, that we pass it the icon that it's actually going to be using. So to do that, what I'll do is that I'm going to be adding a property to my actual rounded text form field class, which I'm going to say final icon data, and this is going to be the prefix icon. And I'm going to say that I'm going to create a constructor for this actual class. So for this, you can hover over the rounded text form field class, quick fix, and then add key to constructors. This creates the constructor for you. And I'm going to say we're going to have a required property that needs to get passed to the constructor on initialization, and this is going to be this.prefix icon. And then for this prefix icon here, instead of using icons email outline, I'm going to say that we're going to use the prefix icon like so. To command save. Now I'm going to come back to my login page, and then here for the rounded text form field that we're instantiating, I'm going to say prefix icon is going to be icons.email outline like so. Do command save. Now that this is done, what I can do, and the power of this is that I can use another rounded text form field, but this time instead of using icons.email outline, I can use this lock one, that the icon is going to be lock outlined. So I'll use that lock_outlined. And if you do command save, now you can see that we have the same text field, but it has a different log, but the same styling. So let's continue styling our text form field now. So now that this is done, the next thing that I want to do is that I want to basically remove the border. Our actual form fields have no border. So to do that, for the decoration property, you can set the error border property and then use const outline input border. And then you can say the border side and do border side dot none. So this is going to remove any borders that our text fields might have. And then with this done, the last thing that I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to be adding a hint text to our form fields, because for now, when our form fields are empty, it doesn't display email address or password. So to do this, what you can do is that you can basically come beneath the border, and this is also defined in the input decoration object. I'm going to say hint text, and the hint text is going to be again different depending upon what type of text field we're initializing. So I'll come at the top here. I'm going to say that we're going to have another property called final string, and I'm going to call this hint text, and I'm going to say that this is also going to be a required property. So this dot hint text, I'm going to say that the hint text will be equal to hint text here. To command save, come back to our login page, and then for the first one, the hint text is going to be email address, and then for the next one, the hint text is going to be password. So I'm going to do this, do command save, and there you go. Now we have email address and password showing up. So the next thing that I want to do is that I want to change the styling for this. So to do that, what you can do is do hint style, which is also going to be a text style property. And here I'm going to say that the font size is going to be 10, and then the color is going to be color dot from red, green, blue, and orange. It's going to be 131, 143, 160, and 100, and do option shift F, another, do alt shift F, command save, and there we go. So everything looks good now. And now I can see that our text field has somewhat of a similar styling to what we're seeing on the screen, but still a lot of stuff needs to be done. We need to change the background color for this, and we need to add some shadows on the back, as well as change these borders to be rounded. But that's going to be done in another way that cannot be done directly to the text form field. But before that, I want to do another thing, which is that when we type in our password, I want this field to obscure the text. So for that, what I'm going to do is that for our text form field, I'm going to have an obscure text property. And what I'll do is that for my rounded text field, I'll set a property on this, which is going to be of type bool, and it's going to be called obscure text. And I'm going to set that equal to be obscure text like so. Do command save, come back to my login page. Then I'm going to say here that obscure text, and wait, it's giving me an error here, and it's saying to me that I need to, for all final properties, define what they're going to be. So for obscure text, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to say this is going to be not a required property, but if obscure text is provided, then we'll use that value. If it's not provided, then the default value for that is going to be false. And then we can use obscure text here. And then here, since I only want the obscure text to be true for the password text field, I'm going to say that obscure text property here is going to be true. Do command save. And now if I go back to my rounded text form field, you can see that when we type in the email, that's not being obscured, but when we type in our password, that is being obscured. And there you go. Now we've done that. So the next three things that we need to do to make our text field look as similar to the screenshots as we can is that we need to round up the borders, we need to change the background color, and we need to add some shadows. So let's do that. To do this, what we're going to be doing is the first thing is that we are going to be basically using the container which we have covered our text form field with, and we're basically going to be adding a decoration property to this. This decoration property is going to be of type box decoration. And inside of this, I'm going to define the color, and the color is going to be colors.white. So I'll do command save. And the next thing after this that I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to be defining the border radius, and the border radius is going to be border radius.all, and then radius.circular, and then I'm going to add a value of 100 here like so, and do alt shift F, command save. And now you guys are not able to see this, but our text form fields should have a rounded corner now. So to see this, what I'm going to be doing now is that I'm going to be basically firstly taking my container, I'm going to be saying that I'm going to refactor it. I'm going to wrap this container with another container with a center widget. And then I'm going to wrap the center widget with another widget, which is going to be a container. And you'll see the reason for this. And I'll do command save. And then this container is going to have a width, which is going to be equal to media query dot of context dot size dot width. And then I'm going to take to 0.65 to command save. And then I'm going to add the decoration property here, which is going to be const box decoration. And then I'm going to define the box shadow property here. So we're going to be adding a shadow to our container, and this is going to be box shadow. And then inside of here, we'll do color, and the color is going to be color dot. So what's the color for our shadow going to be? RGBO 67, 71, 77, and then 0.08, like so. And the next thing that I'm going to be doing after this is that I am going to be defining the spread radius for our box shadow, which is going to be 10. And these are all values that I came up with through my testing. So you will have to test stuff as well in your development journey to figure out what works and what doesn't. And then after this, I'm going to do offset, and the offset is going to be offset 0 and 12. And it's going to give me an error saying, oh, a box shadow needs to be a list of box shadow. So we do this box shadow objects, Option Shift F, command save. And now you can see that our email address fields have rounded corners. This is because of this container where we set the border radius and the color. And then for the, we wrap this with the center widget, and then we wrap everything with a container. And then to that container, we actually add shadows. So this is pretty much it. This was all of the styling that we had to do. So now the next thing that we have to do is that we can close down our rounded text form field. We can come back to our login page, and we can fix some of the styling here. So the first thing that I'm going to do is that for our form fields, I'm going to come to the size box. I'm going to set the height property here because I want to add some spacing between our form fields. I'm going to say that this height is going to be media query dot of context dot size dot height. And then I'm going to say that this is going to be 0.20. Our form fields also need to take in the build context. So I'll say build context like so. And then I'm going to pass the context here as well. Do command save. Then I'm going to come to my column. I'm going to say that the column has going to be have a main axis size of maximum. Then I'm going to say that the actual main axis alignment is going to be main axis alignment dot space between. And then I'm going to have a cross-axis alignment, which is going to be cross-axis alignment dot end, like so, and do command save. And let's do cross-axis alignment for center dot now, and I'll show you what the end is going to be used for. So now that we have the rounded text form fields added, the next thing that I want to do is I want to add the link for forgot password. So to do that, I'll add a text widget. It's going to say forgot password, like so. And then I'm going to add a style property to this and do command save. This is going to be called text style. And here what I'm going to be doing is that I'm just going to be defining the styling properties for this. So the color is going to be colors.blue. And then the font size is going to be font size 15, like so. Option Shift F, command save. And now you can see that we have the forgot password button showing up as well. If you want to align everything to the left, what we can do is that we can say the cross-axis alignment is going to be N, and this moves everything to the left and aligns everything from the left, as we can see. And then the last thing that I want to do once we have the forgot password button added is that I want to basically add some padding to my actual column, which is at the top here from the top, left, right, and bottom. So to do that, what I'm going to be doing is that to my login form, I'm going to come to where it says the form, and then I'm going to say that the column, before the column, which holds my form fields, I'm going to be adding some padding to it. So I'm going to say refactor and then wrap with the padding widget. And then the padding is going to be agentsets.symmetric. So what symmetric does is that it applies the same padding on the horizontal axis from the left and right, and then on the vertical axis from the top and bottom. So for the horizontal, it'll be 10, and then for vertical, it'll be 25, like so. Alt Shift F, command save, and there you go. the last thing that I want to do is that I want to go to my rounded text form fields, and I want to change the actual width for this to be not 85, not 65, but 85. And I think this pretty much fixes up everything for us. And now the text fields are looking the way they're supposed to look. Now, if I do command save and I try to type something on our text fields, you're going to see that when the keyboard appears, it says that the bottom overflowed by a certain amount of pixels. There are many ways that you can fix this, but one of the easiest ways to fix this is that you can go to the actual login page and then to the parent scaffold, and then you can set a property here called resize to avoid bottom inset to true. Do command save. Oh, and actually you have to set this property to false. Do command save, and now when the keyboard appears, it's not going to resize the UI. Another way you could fix this would be to wrap the build UI column within a single child scroll view, and that would fix the issue as well. But I like this situation and this solution, so I like to do things this way. But now the final thing that we have to do is that we need to basically create this last part of our UI, which is going to be a column, which is going to basically hold our sign in button, and then I don't have an account button. So how are we going to be doing this? Well, to do this, what I'll do is that I am going to be coming down and I'm going to be creating a new function, which I'm going to call bottom buttons. So to do this, what I'll do is that within the login form, I'm going to create a section. I'm going to call this bottom buttons, and I'm going to say that this is going to return a column. And then what I'll do is that I'll take this bottom buttons function, I'll come to my actual login form, and after my form fields, I want to add this bottom buttons function. I'm going to invoke it, and I'm going to pass the context to this as well. And then what I'll do is that I'll come down and I'm going to say that my bottom buttons is also going to take the build context, and I'm going to call this context and do command save. Then for my column, I'm going to define the main axis size, which is going to be main axis size dot max. I'm going to define the main axis alignment, which is going to be main axis alignment dot center. And I'm going to define the cross axis alignment, which is going to be cross axis alignment dot center, and then do command save. And after this, I'm going to define the children. And for the children, I'm going to have firstly a sized box, which is going to hold my button. And then I'm going to have this I don't have an account button. So to do this, the first thing that we're going to be doing is that we're going to add a sized box. And the reason for this will become apparent. And I'm going to have a child for this. And the child for this is going to be the button that is going to hold the blue color and the sign in text. So since I like my code to be reusable and my widgets to be reusable, I'm going to come to the widgets folder. I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call this file rounded circular button.dart. And once this is done, I'm going to basically create a class, which I'm going to say rounded circular button extends stateless widget. I'm going to say that this is going to have a constructor. So you can create the constructor by yourself by just doing this and then saying that it's going to take a super.key property. And that's pretty much it. And then adding the build function to this. And for the build function, what I'll do is that I am going to return a elevated button like so. For the onPressed property, I'm going to say that it's going to be nothing. Why? Just because we're just building the UI, there's no interactivity to it. And then for the child, I'm going to say that it's going to be a text. And what is the text going to say? Well, since I want the rounded circular button to be able to be used at different places within our app, I'm going to add a property to my rounded circular button class, which is going to be string, which is going to be called text. And then we're going to say that this is going to be required property that needs to be passed to the constructor. And we'll say that this is going to be the text like so. So after doing this, I am going to now do Alt-Shift-F command save, come back to my login page, come back to the size box and add this rounded circular button as the child for this, and the text is going to be sign in like so. And there we go. We are now able to see the sign in button. Now what I'll do is I'll come back to my rounded circular button. I'm going to define the styling properties for this text. I'm going to say it's going to be text style, and then the color is going to be colors.white, and then the font size is going to be 20, and then the font weight is going to be font weight.w600 like so. do Alt-Shift-F command save, and there we go. Now you can't see it, but the sign is in white. It's just because of the background being a little bit gray that it's difficult to see. The next thing that I'm going to be doing from here is that for my elevated button, I'm going to define the style property, and I'm going to say that this is going to be elevated button, and then I'm going to say dot style from, and I'm going to say that this is going to have a background color, which is going to be colors.blue. And as soon as we do this, you're going to see that it's going to make it blue. And then I am also going to be basically changing the shape for this. So for that, what I'll do is that I'm going to set the shape property, and I'm going to say it's going to be rounded rectangular border. And I'm going to say that the border radius is going to be border radius dot circular 100. And then Option-Shift-F command save. And I'm going to add a do this, and there we go. Our sinus button is now working, and that's pretty much all we had to do. I can add the const keyword here to remove that squiggly line, and then we can shut down our rounded circular button file, and we can come back to our login page and specifically to the bottom buttons function. Now what we're going to be doing is that we're going to be changing the size of our button, because if you see in the screenshots, the size of our button is different than what we can see here. So to do that, what I'll do is that I am going to basically take the sized box, because I wrapped my rounded circular button within the size box, and then I'm going to say that this size box is going to have a specific width. So to do that, what I'll do is that I'm going to say that it's going to have a width, which is going to be equal to media query dot of context dot size dot width times 0.80, like so. And this is going to increase that. And then for the height, I'll do the same thing, which is height media query dot of context dot size dot height times 0.06, like so. Do command save, and there we go. Our button is being shown the way it's supposed to be. So now that this is done, the next thing that I want to do is that I want to add some spacing between these part of our UI, which are the form fields and the buttons. So to do this, what I can do is that I can go to the function login form, then to our column, which holds our form fields, which is a column, and the bottom buttons, which is a column, and I can set the properties here. So the first property is going to be main axis size, which I'll set to main axis size.max. Then for the main axis alignment, which for a column is going to be the vertical axis, I'm going to do space between, like so. And then for the cross axis alignment, we can do cross axis alignment.center, and there we go. That's pretty much it. And the last thing that we are going to be doing is that we are going to be adding a button, which is, or a link, which is going to be I don't have an account. So for that, what I'll do is that I am going to basically, after the sized box, add a text widget. This text widget is going to say I don't have an account, like so. And then I'm going to do command save. This is going to add that. And then after this, what I'll do is that I'll just change the styling for this. So by now you should have understood how to change the styling for text. You add the style property, which is of type textile. Then for the textile object, you define different properties, which are, for example, the font size being 15, the font weight being font weight dot 600, and then the color being colors dot blue, like so. And then Alt-Shift-F command save. There you go. You can see. So now that the text styling is the way I want it to be, I want to add some padding between the sign in button and this I don't have an account link. So to do that, I'll take my text and I can do Control-Shift-R as well as another way of refactoring. And then I'm going to say that I'm going to wrap it with a padding widget. And this time the padding is going to be edge-and-sets.only. And I'm just showing you different ways of adding patterns. That's why I'm using all of these different techniques. And then I'm going to say that from the top, I want that to be 20. And then from the bottom, I want this to be 30. And then Alt-Shift-F command save, and there you go. Now you can see that our UI is looking the way we want it to look, and everything is the way we want it to be. As always, I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, then please don't forget to leave a like on the video as well as subscribe to my channel so that you get notified every time I upload new videos. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can leave them down in the comments below and I'll try my best to answer them for you. And if you want access to the source code for this project that we built, I'll leave a link to that in the description below. You can click on it and buy it for a very small amount, like $5 or so. So with that said, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed the video. Stay happy, stay healthy, keep learning, keep growing, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.